trying to get them to be their own coach. So before I say something, I need them to try to figure out what they're doing, right? So eventually, if you watch me work with a guy that I've been working with for a while, I might say 2 words the whole session, right? Every time he takes a bad swing, he's telling me what he's doing wrong and what the fix is, right? Because I tell him, I said, I know these lessons may be fun or whatever, but when your game starts, I'm not going to be there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the world's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy Filangieri. I'm David Friedman. I want to thank you for coming along on this ride with us.
Our job is to build them up, because the analogy I use is the baseball field is like the classroom, right? So if a kid has trouble with his math or he makes a mistake with his math problem, you don't scream at him because he didn't carry the one. Right? You show him what he did wrong and then let him fix it.
If you remember last year, we recorded from the ABCA Convention. Well, this year we did the same thing with kind of a twist to it. The ABCA put together what they called Podcast Row. So the Clearing the Bases podcast, along with some other great podcasters, were set up at the convention recording live. In this episode, we sat down with our first guest live from Dallas, and that was Mr. Nichols. Here we are, ABCA Convention, Dallas, Texas. We have a special guest, Mr. Nichols, who is a former Major League Baseball player, an ABCA member, and a current trainer of youth baseball. Is that right?
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about where did you play? How did your career start?
Well, I played all my life. My older brother, like a lot of people, introduced me to baseball. Fell in love. I was drafted out of high school in Compton, California, for the Baltimore Orioles. Played about 18 years of professional baseball.
That's incredible. God bless you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a journey, but it was fun. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Got to do a lot of things, meet a lot of people that normally wouldn't have happened or otherwise happened. So I played 18 years. When I got done playing, I thought I was done with baseball, and then I realized, the real world wasn't fun.
Of course not, right?
Right, baseball is more fun. So
yeah.
So I got into coaching a little bit, and then. Because when I got done playing, I was a little frustrated. Because I thought I should have played like everybody. Should have played longer in the big leagues. But at that time, I was blaming everybody else. But when I started coaching, that's when I realized I was to blame. I was the reason I didn't play longer. Right. So my calling was to help other kids make sure they don't have this similar attitude when they get into the game.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said, though. Like you said, when you stopped playing, then you realize that yes, the burden is all on you.
Yeah, yes.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're 100%. And so I started coaching. Like I said, that's kind of been my message to all the kids is, you're gonna have plenty of reasons to blame other people, have excuses because they're plentiful. But if this is something you want to do, you have to take control of, what you're doing. Yeah. And you can't blame anybody else. Because everybody gets an opportunity. Some get more than others, obviously, right? But some people may only get one opportunity. Yeah. But when you get it, you have to take advantage of it, and you have to be prepared for it. All right. So that's my message to the kids that I train is be prepared for your opportunity because you don't know how many you're going to get.
But don't you find that? It's really that kids don't really know. There's actually really no way of them knowing how much work you really have to put into it, unless they're fortunate enough to have somebody like yourself that goes out and said, hey, buddy, okay, you working, 2 hours a week on hitting is not going to make you a good hitter.
Right, correct. Yeah, and that's a lesson that I learned because growing up, I was pretty good. And, I was always one of the better players everywhere I went, so it never did occur to me that I needed to put in extra work, right? So like you said, unless somebody tells you, there are some kids who just naturally do that, but they're pretty rare. But unless somebody's telling you and conditioning you to, you have to put in extra work in order to get to. That's not just baseball. That's anything you're trying to achieve.
Sure.
Right. So you got to put in extra work. Just going to practice isn't enough.
Yeah.
All right. You have to put in time outside of your normal practices and games and all that kind of stuff, and you have to put in the right kind of work.
Yeah, we were just talking not that long ago on the show with someone who coached Henry Davis, who I'm sure you're familiar with Henry Davis. He was number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, the catcher.
He's from our area. Okay. So I was talking to a coach about him, and I said, one of the important things that kids need to know, they need to go and see a guy like Henry Davis, see what he is doing that got him to where he is, because most kids.
They just see him. They just see a guy show up, hitting home runs and doing all this stuff, and not realizing, what they did to get to that position, right? Because I coached against Bryce Harper when he was 14 years old, right? And I tell kids, you guys, you see this $300 million contract, but you guys don't realize that starting at age 13, Bryce Harper would get up at 5 in the morning and go work out before he went to school, and then come home after his practices and work out again. Yeah. Right? And a guy like Hunter Green, who I had since he was 7 years old. Yeah. Right? And Hunter Green didn't even get his driver's license until he was 18 years old, because he didn't have time to do all that stuff, because he was always busy getting himself prepared, because his mom told me when he was especially in high school, he wouldn't go to bed before 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Right? Because he'd get up at 5, work out, go to school, go to practice, come home, do his homework, and then work out again. Yeah. And he did that for 4 years straight while he was in high school.
Well, I mean, nobody would know better than you, okay? Because obviously you went through every single level that there is, okay? Little League, whatever was available when we were young, because it wasn't travel ball when we were young. No. Maybe Legion ball. Then on high school, college. If you played college, you went right to professional baseball, then to the major leagues. Okay, so you've seen every single step.
Yes.
And I think it's important to get a perspective from somebody like you, how much that talent gets better as you get up, and how much harder you have to work.
Well, it's funny you say that, because again, I tell the kids all the time, when you see these guys, the talent in the major leagues, there are probably just as much as more talent of guys that didn't make it. Yeah. And it wasn't because of their talent, it was because of their habits. Be it going out drinking or partying, or not working out, or not keeping themselves in shape, or whatever the case may be. So, I've seen the best of the best. Yeah. I was teammates with Hall of Famers, Eddie Murray, Cal Ripken, Craig Biggio, Jeff Bagwell. They all have similar habits.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what makes them what they were,
Correct.
So talk to me a little bit about what you're doing now, with training kids. Where are you working out of? What's going on?
Yeah, so in 2006, I was hired at the Urban Youth Academy in Compton, the very first one that was built by Major League Baseball. So I worked there for 6 years, and so there I trained guys like Aaron Hicks, who's now with the Baltimore Orioles, Hunter Green, Dominic Smith, J.P. Crawford, and a few other guys, guys that went on playing the big leagues. So I was there for 6 years, and then when I left there, I actually moved to Atlanta. And so basically in Atlanta, I coach travel ball a little bit, but I focus more on individual training. And I train all different levels of kids. Just most people hear about the guys that end up getting drafted. Like I had a kid, Tamar Johnson, who was a first-round pick by the Pirates last year. He was actually their minor league player of the year this year.
Wow.
So basically, I'm training kids, and now we're going to be starting a national program with a couple of my partners, with the National Scouting Bureau, then the National Prospects, or Prospect Nationals is going to be the name of the organization. So we're going to try to do this on a bigger scale. But my talent, or one of my talents, is I'm able to find kids who are flying under the radar, and bring them out and get them where they're trying to get to, because they're missing something. For example, I got a kid this year. His name is Sam Parker. And I met Sam a few years ago. When I first met him, he was like 5'10", And, he was a good ball player or whatever, but he wasn't getting the attention of scouts. Well, 8 months later, he was 6'4", right? But, again, he was a good ball player, but he wasn't doing what a 6'4" guy should be doing. Right. So I started working with him, and all of a sudden he starts hitting home runs like he should be, and then the scouts started showing up, and he ends up getting drafted this past June or July by the Minnesota Twins. Now, he didn't sign because he was a late draft pick, but he's at junior college right now.
Okay.
He'll be getting drafted again this year. Right. So,
which I love that, by the way.
Yeah. So basically, I was able to help him find his potential. This past fall at Chipola, he's at Chipola College. They played 14 games in the fall. He had 7 home runs in 14 games. Right, so he's going to be a high-round draft pick in the spring. So I have a lot of stories like that with guys that I work with, just to show them, help them find their potential. There's a kid named Dylan Tate who's with the Orioles in the big leagues. I don't know if you guys know him. So Dylan Tate was one of my guys. He actually quit baseball when he was in high school.
Really?
Yeah, and I brought him out to Atlanta for.
Why did he quit?
He quit going into his senior year. He quit after his junior year, or he was going to quit. Let's put it that way. His uncle told him, before you quit, go see Carl. So he came to see me, and he threw a bullpen for me, and I'm like, because he wasn't playing with his high school team, and I'm like, why would this kid not be playing? So I took him to, we went on like a 6-week tour doing tournaments back east in Atlanta and in a couple other places, and he pitched well, got his confidence back, and then I actually helped him get into, so I helped him get into college. He ended up going to UC Santa Barbara. And after sophomore season, he called me, and he was kind of down, and because he wasn't getting a chance to pitch a whole lot. So I hooked him up with I have a speed trainer, his name is Ed Lovelace. He was an Olympic sprinter.
Okay.
So one of the things we do is we take the Olympic training model to baseball players, because it helps with everything: speed, bat speed, arm speed, everything. So basically, he started working out with Ed. His velocity went from 91 to 100 miles an hour in 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he ended up being the first pick of the, after junior, he ended up being the first pick of the first pitcher taken in that draft that year.
Good for him. Wow, that's a great story.
So again, I have a lot of guys like that where they just start performing, and then all of a sudden they start getting the attention of.
Well, really, let's call it what it is, okay? You said there's a lot of kids that, maybe would have fallen by the wayside. Coaches need to build kids up.
Right.
Not look at a kid and say, well, he's 14 years old, this is wrong, that's wrong. No, wait a minute. He's 14 years old. How can we help him?
Right.
Okay. Now, granted, we're not going to make major leaguers out of every single kid, but let's make him be the best that he could be.
Correct. Yeah, because the majority of the guys that I help and work with, getting them into college. Because again, I had to tell them, I said, I'm realistic with them. Everybody's not going to be a major leaguer.
Yeah.
Right? But you can be a major league contributor to society.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, there's other jobs within baseball, if you like the game, that you can stay in. You go to college, get your degree, and you may be a general manager one day.
Exactly.
A lot of things can happen.
A lot of things
in this game. So
a lot of the stuff that I've seen that you've posted on social media, okay, a lot of it is about hitting, right?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because the reason why I want to talk about that, because I agree with almost everything that I've read that you put out there, where I know that not everybody does. So let's talk about that a little bit.
It's interesting. I've had some interesting conversations online with hitting when I talk hitting. Cause I get a lot of people want to know, how can a career 206 hitter be a hitting coach, right? And that was my major league numbers. My minor league numbers are a little bit better. It was because of that 207 number that I sought out the answers, because I felt like I was better than what my numbers were showing, so there had to be a reason. So what started me on this path of hitting the first person was Don Slott. Right, I guess he went through a similar thing, so he was able to figure it out, and ended up having a long major league career. So he created a program called the Right View Pro, So there's a lot of instruction in his program to go along with being able to evaluate different hitters. And he explains everything, step by step, the hit. So that was the beginning of my learning process. And then I ended up meeting Reggie Smith.
Okay.
So Reggie Smith was basically able to help me figure out the pieces that I was missing with hitting, right? A lot of stuff, because I was a catcher when I played. So one of my strength as a catcher was I could figure out what was going on with the hitter, and I knew how to attack what was going on with his swing, whether he was struggling or not, right? Well, Reggie helped me articulate what I was seeing with those hitters, right? So now I do the same thing when I work with hitters. I can see the flaws in their hitting, right, as if I was catching, but now, because thanks to Reggie and Don Slott, I know what the cause of those flaws are, and I know how to fix them.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I get such good results from so many guys when I work with them.
Well, a lot of times I say this, and tell me if I'm wrong. All right, the good instructors know what to fix,
yes,
and what to leave alone.
Exactly. It's funny you say that, because again, I've had parents, not necessarily kids, parents who didn't want to bring their kids back to me because they said I was too quiet. Right, and my thing is, well, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you don't need me trying to fix something that's not broke, right? Because usually when I do my lessons, the first lessons is like an hour and a half, and most of it is me talking and explaining the swing and explaining their swing, because everybody's swing is unique to them, and explaining to them cause and effect, right? So every lesson after that, I'm trying to get them to be their own coach. So before I say something, I need them to try to figure out what they're doing, right? And so eventually, if you watch me work with a guy that I've been working with for a while, I might say 2 words the whole session, right? Every time he takes a bad swing, he's telling me what he's doing wrong and what the fix is, right? Because I tell him, I said, I know these lessons may be fun or whatever, but when your game starts, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
You got to figure out what you're doing right there on the spot, and not come back to me and give me another $100 for a lesson, because that's not how it works. That's not how it should work.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Yeah. I could not agree with that more.
Yeah. So, and I don't do a lot of lessons. I try to do like other guys, because there's a lot of us out here that just running them in and out.
Yeah.
The cash register.
Yeah.
And so I don't do that. I may do, if I'm on a Saturday, I may do 3 lessons in one day. So I spread them out. Right. So even though it's, maybe an hour lesson, but the kid may get an hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes because that's what he needs. Right. I don't send them away when I'm done. I send them, they finish when they're done.
When they're done.
When they get tired and all that stuff. So.
But I love what you said about they have to be their own coach. So true. I agree with that 100%. I mean, even during the game, I've talked about it on the show a million times, okay? So I'm a high school baseball coach. During my games, you don't even know I'm there. You don't hear me say anything. They're on the field. They need to make decisions. They need to figure out what they're doing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I may say, hey, what happened there, whatever.
Yes,
but go do your thing, okay? Whatever happens, believe me, we'll address it in practice, okay? But during the game, go do your thing.
Yeah, and that's my coaching style too. And again, I've had parents say that they don't want to play for me because I don't say anything. Because they're so used to having coaches scream at their kids constantly. And I just remember as a player, I hated people screaming at me. If I'm doing something wrong, just tell me when I get to the dugout, and I'll try to fix it.
Right. I mean, you did something wrong. You didn't want to do something wrong.
Right. Because I'm like, I watch some of these coaches, and they're screaming at the kids, and I'm like, the kid's not trying to make an out. He's not trying to make an error. And, because I remember one specifically, I had a group of 11-year-olds. They were 10. Yeah, 10 going on 11. And we played a tournament, and most of the kids were first time they played for me. And so a third baseman, had a tough inning. He made a couple of errors, right? So after we get the third out, he comes running off the field, and he's just in tears. And I'm like, what's wrong? But he was just so used to being screamed at every time he made a mistake. And I just told him, dude, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Everybody makes errors. Just get yourself together and get ready to hit. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that the message that I know I need to get out, or I want to get out to youth baseball coaches, parent coaches they're trying to help. They're doing the best that they can, okay? But to your point, I've been coaching for a very long time. I know there's not one player I've ever had that made an error on purpose. So we want to try and get that message out to say to parents, you know what? Kid makes an error. Pat him on the back and tell him, hey, buddy, put that behind you. Let's go.
Yeah, because, anybody that's competitive that wants to win, nobody's harder than the player is on himself.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, they don't need us piling on.
Yeah,
to what they already feel bad. They let the team down and all that kind of stuff. So our job is to build them up. Because the analogy I use is the baseball field is like the classroom, right? So if a kid has trouble with his math or he makes a mistake with his math problem, you don't scream at him because he didn't carry the one, right? You show him what he did wrong and then let him fix it.
You help him.
And that's what we got to. That's what we're supposed to do, especially with the younger kids on the baseball field.
Yeah.
Right. Because I tell parents all the time. I say, if your kid has aspirations to play beyond high school, okay, you got to make it fun for them first. Because when it gets really tough, and if they don't love the game, they're going to quit at the first sign of adversity.
Yeah.
Right. And it's your love of the game that's going to carry you through that adversity.
We actually use a failure protocol. And again, our listeners have heard me say this a million times. You make an error, you make a miscue. We actually have a protocol that player has to go through. And the idea is to get his mind on something else so he forgets about that and he moves forward.
Yeah.
And I don't know why more coaches don't do that.
Well, again, that's probably a number of reasons. I think for me, my opinion, one of the reasons is a lot of us coaches are in it for the wrong reason. Especially in travel ball, right? In travel ball, you're in it for the money, right? In order to make money, you got to go win tournaments, right? In order to sell yourself to that next kid that's coming in, right? Because again, a lot of the tournaments that I coach in, we struggle. Number one, because a lot of times I have my kids play up, so we don't necessarily win like some of the other organizations. Right? For example, when I was at the academy, I took a group to Australia. We went to Australia and played. Well, actually, before we went to Australia, we went to China in the summer.
Wow.
A group of 14-year-olds. Well, it was supposed to be 14. Most of them were like 11, 12, 13. Right? Dominic Smith was one of those kids on that team. So we went to China, and we were there for 10 days. We didn't win one game, right? Because they were playing against 16-year-olds in China.
Yep.
Later that year, we went to Australia with the same group of kids. When we went to Australia, they played against kids their own age group, and we went like 8-3 in Australia. Yep. Same group of kids, same everything, but because I always train them to play up.
Yes.
It just helps them get better fast. You don't necessarily win all the games all the time, but for me, they get better faster.
Yeah.
Right, and then because I had these guys when I was at the academy. I had Dominic Smith and J.P. Crawford and all those guys when they were 12, 13 years old facing pro guys throwing 90.
Yeah, wow.
Right, and when they go up to the plate, like, okay, probably not going to get hit, but let's see if you can just make contact. Right, they make contact. It was an accomplishment. They come back to the dugout cheering that they made it out. Yeah. Right, but it built it. Now when they go back and face their peers, their own age, it's not a big deal. Facing velocity or their curveball or whatever they're seeing. Yeah. Right, so. So for me, playing when I do coach in tournaments, it's about development first. And then now learning how to win is part of that development.
Sure.
But it's not the same thing as winning, because I tell guys all the time that I can go out and win tournaments after tournament. All I can do is get the biggest, strongest kids, stack my team with a bunch of pitchers, and you can win all day.
Right.
But are they necessarily getting better?
Right. Are you learning anything?
Right.
Right.
Or you got this 25-man roster. Guys, he goes over to you, pinch hit for him, right? Because you're trying to win the game instead of letting that guy figure it out in his third or fourth at bat. All right. So
we need more guys with your train of thought.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, again, the parent that don't appeal to the parents. A lot of the parents when you do it that way, right? Again, because they want to win right now, Again, which doesn't necessarily help them in their long-term development.
Right. So, yes, I've dealt with that too. You've only won 50% of your games, 40% of your games, whatever it is. Why should I bring my kid back?
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll take the parent, sit down, bring the player over, sit down. Okay, let's talk. Before this year, did you know how to do this?
Right.
No, coach. Do you know how to do it now? Yes. And I'll go through a whole litany of things, okay? And then I'll look at the parent and I'll say, he got better. We didn't win.
Right.
He got better.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the way I do it, I was like, if they want to go somewhere else, I said, okay, good luck to you. All right. And then usually later on, they'll either come back to me or one of the other parents will say, well, so-and-so wants to come back, but he's afraid, or they're afraid to come back.
Why?
Because they think I'm going to say something about them leaving in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? Because usually, again, especially if they've been with me a while, they realize when they go to these other coaches, they're not getting, like you were saying, the development that they were getting with me.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Yeah. I mean, simple little things like, again, high school level. Okay, guys, come on. We're going to do leads off the first base today. Everybody line up. Now, I expect, however many players I have, let's say I have 20 players. I expect them all to line up and do their leads, and I'm done.
Right.
Okay. So that's not the case.
Right.
It's okay, guys. This is how we do. Now, again, we're talking at the varsity high school level. How can it be that nobody ever taught you how to take the proper lead? It's a basic rudimentary thing that should only really take 10 minutes to teach you.
It drives me nuts. And I go to these, because like I said, I live in Atlanta now, so I go to East Cobb a lot and see all the tournaments.
Yeah.
And I'm watching these so-called elite players and elite teams, and they can't do the simple stuff you're talking about. Probably the thing that drives me the craziest the most is how they don't hit their cutoff man.
Oh, please.
And I just, how do you, because I can remember growing up with my brother, my older brother, who introduced the game to me. That's the first thing he taught me is how to play catch, right? Because if I threw a ball over his head, he'd make me go get it.
Yes.
All right, I got tired of chasing the ball, so I learned how to play catch, But
I still do that today.
Yeah, I do too.
if you're throwing this way and you miss him, you throw over his head. You run and get it, and he replaces you.
Right. But so that's, little stuff like that, running the bases, knowing how to round the base or.
And another thing you said that I just want to hammer home so our listeners can hear this about hitting a cutoff, okay? If you want to see me get upset, okay, you watch a guy airmail a ball from right field to home, doesn't get the runner, and the hitter advances to second base. I will lose my mind.
Same here. That's same. I tell them, it's not a thing. You're not going to hear me scream a lot in the dugout during the game. But that's one of the things.
Mental.
Because it's a mental mistake. Right? I may not say nothing. I may not scream the first time, but if you repeat it, now we got a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So I may scream at you, and if I got a sub, I'm subbing you out.
Exactly.
There's no excuse. There's no excuse for not hitting the cutoff man. But again, so many of these guys aren't taught that, especially guys when they got a good arm, they want to show off their arm. And I'm like, you can't throw anybody out up there. It just takes longer to get to where you're trying to throw it, and then you allow, like you said, those guys to take that extra base.
The other thing too, which to me is very important, is we want our players to know the situation. Okay, don't get me wrong. Bottom of the seventh, tie game. That guy's going. Yes, I want you to. You got it. Right. You don't have a choice.
Right.
But on a random run-of-the-mill play, no, we're hitting the cutoff.
Well, and then that's what I teach as well. I tell them when you're on defense, you should be thinking about 3 plays at a time, or ahead 3 plays. But that's something we learned playing pickup ball growing up.
Sure.
Well, now kids when they first start playing baseball, their first experience in baseball is travel ball.
Yes.
So when they're doing travel ball, they're told how to think and what to think.
Yes.
And they're not allowed the freedom to make a mistake. They try different things and to see where their strengths and weaknesses are.
Well, you had mentioned about pickup games. Okay, so when we were kids, and we're probably about the same age, when we were kids, we very rarely did we have 18 guys to put 9 and 9.
Right.
So we modified the game and played, but those modifications taught us
this is our training,
how to hit the ball the opposite way, how to do this, how to do that. Taught us a lot.
Yeah, we played. I played a lot of over the line. I don't know if you guys played that. Yeah, we played over the line. We used to play. We call it pickle. You know, we played that game. We played 3 flies up. We played strikeout.
Yep.
All those different games, but not realizing that was we were training to learn how to play, because again, it taught us, the bat control, throwing the ball, and just different aspects of the game that you would need during the course of the game, and you learn what your strengths and your weaknesses were, right? And so yeah, these kids don't do that today.
It's a shame, because I know that we played stickball in the schoolyard forever. Okay.
Yep.
So stickball bat is a little bit bigger than a broom handle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What did that do for us, in terms of barreling balls up, hand-eye coordination?
Right.
So much. And we were just fooling around, basically.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because part of what I teach and what I've learned from Reggie Smith is allowing the body to do what it naturally wants to do, right? So with no coaches around, you had to figure out a way to get that bat or that stick on that little object you were trying to hit, right? And you couldn't do that by doing something that wasn't natural for you, right? Which is what I teach with the hitting, because I took from what Reggie Smith taught me. I'm not teaching you your swing; you're teaching me your swing.
That's right.
I'm just showing you how to be efficient and consistent with your swing.
Sure.
Right, because that was part of my struggles as a player. Is I was constantly going against what my body naturally wanted to do. I figured that out later, obviously, but it was a struggle, because I was doing what they were telling me to do, which wasn't correct, versus what my body naturally wanted to do.
Isn't that interesting? Because, I find the same thing. And again, people on the show's heard me say this a million times. There's only a couple of things that I believe needs to, like, in other words, number one is your head can't move. Okay. If your head is moving, your eyes are moving, you can't see the baseball, you can't hit it. I don't care what you do. Okay. So again, I'll go through a few things with my players, but again, I want their body to, what you just said, move the way it moves best for you to be able to get the barrel to that ball.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and that's probably the biggest thing I learned about hitting is, not enough attention is brought to the head movement. Because again, looking back, when I played, I had a lot of head movement when I was going bad.
Yeah.
All right, and nobody ever talked to me about my head movement. Again, they're telling me to stop rolling over, or stop swinging up, or stop whatever I was doing, but nobody told me why I was doing all that stuff.
Yeah. See the ball, hit the ball, done.
Yeah, and I've heard that all my whole life, but it was never explained to me what that actually meant.
What it actually means, yes.
And that was what I had a problem, because for me as a player, I took everything literally when you told me something, right? Even if it didn't make sense to me, I would still do it, right? So I tried, and when I'm teaching, I try not to use the buzzwords.
Okay.
I tell them exactly how it works, and then if you need a cue for yourself, then you make up your own cue to get you to that point.
That's interesting.
But I'm going to tell you exactly how your swing works, not the cues or the buzzwords, because the cues don't work for everybody.
You're going to have to explain that to me, because I'm a big cue guy. So now I'll just give you an example, okay? So in other words, I'll say to my players a lot, stay on top of the baseball, because of right now, the tendency to create launch angles. So go ahead, tell me why.
Okay, so
why that's
what
bad.
you just said, stay on top. So when I used to hear that, I used to chop down. And roll my hands over and chop down, because I'm trying to stay on top of the ball. But now I know that stay on top of the ball means your hands just stay above the barrel, right? Again, nobody ever explained that to me when I was playing. So if you tell me to stay on top of the ball, that's what I'm doing. I'm
chopping.
I'm tomahawking the ball, that's belt high.
Yeah, so I should say, though, when I do use that cue, believe me, I've already explained it doesn't mean chopping.
No, and again, so for some guys, you use a cue that they can figure it out right away. I wasn't one of those guys, because I took everything literally, right? So I make sure, now once we've established what we're doing, then I may say, stay on top of the ball. Then they'll know what it means. But just to throw that out there, and then without any explanation, it messes a lot of kids up. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also goes back to something that you said earlier about coaching for the next level, okay? So with my high school team, we actually sit and meet to explain every single thing that we're doing that day. Because, again, That's the way it's going to be done on the next level. That's what they're going to do. So to your point, yes, hitting, we'll explain. This is what we mean by that. This is, and teach the players that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you don't explain it, like you said, then they're going to make up their own opinion.
Right, and then again, like I said, if they don't understand their swing, what's going to happen is when you get to that next level, a lot of these coaches will screw you up.
Yep.
I got two guys who are in the pro ball, came back home during the off season, said their minor league coaches don't know what they're talking about. Right, so I got one kid who was. When I got him in high school, he was another example of a kid who wasn't on anybody's radar. He was headed to Indiana as an outfielder. I started working with him right before, after his junior year. Yeah, like the end of his junior year, I started working with him. His next 72 at bats, he had 21 home runs.
He had how many?
21.
Wow.
So he ended up being a 5th round draft pick. Well, he gets to the team that drafted him. Now, mind you, they drafted him because of his power.
Yep.
He's a switch hitter, good power, all that. He gets there, they're telling him, try to hit the ball off the pitcher's mound.
Whoa.
I mean, literally, try to hit the pitcher's mound.
Wow.
Right? And that's what he tries to do.
Sure.
Struggling. All right? And great kid, nice kid, just trying to do what they're telling him to do. And I tell him, I said, well, why did they draft you? And he said, well, they drafted me because of my power. And so I said, well, when's the last time you seen a ball go over the fence that hit the top of the mound? Right? Because he's changed his swing. Now he can't. Not only can he not get the ball in the air, he can't even make contact now.
Yeah.
Because he's one of those kids you can't give him a lot of information.
Yeah.
Right. It just screws him up. All right.
Yeah.
And he's been struggling. And so I finally I told him, and I told him before he even got drafted, this was going to happen. I said, when you start having success, people are going to come, especially at the pro level, they're going to come want to put their stamp on you. All right, they're going to give you this information, probably going to be bad information. You have to learn to let it go in one ear and out the other. You be nice about it. You say, yes, coach, I'll give it a try. Especially something doesn't work, right?
But I'm actually going to ask you something because I want help with this.
Yes.
Okay, because something, again, that you just said makes me think. I've had in the past many, many times, okay, young players, 13, 14, maybe 15, their hands, their first move is to drop their hands, okay, and then come up through the ball. A lot of times the way I try and fix that is I give them a tee, and I tell them, hit the ball into the ground 30 feet in front of you, okay? So I'll take them so that their hands are here, coming down at the baseball, so that once they do that, then believe me, we make sure that they're not driving the ball into the pitcher's mound. But what do you think about that? Is that right or wrong? No, be honest with me.
No, I'm laughing because there really is no right or wrong. Because, again, every individual is different. So if he's having that issue, then that's something he needs to change. Because sometimes I'll do stuff with kids that they won't be doing in the game, but we're trying to change a habit. So what you are doing is you're trying to change a habit.
Yes.
So that doesn't make it right or wrong. Now if you got somebody who doesn't do that, and all of a sudden you're doing that for no reason,
well,
it may not be the best
that's a
thing.
different story.
But I don't think it's wrong because that's what that kid needed.
I mean, I can tell you I've had success with it where kids that were dropping their hands, did they become prolific hitters? No.
Right.
But their hands went from here straight to the baseball.
Yeah, because I'm a believer that, if a kid does have some kind of bad habit, you have to go to the extreme with a lot of the kids, the opposite, to get them out of that habit. Because if you just tell them, like, for example, the example you use, get your hands up, and you just leave it to them to do it, they may start, but then they'll go back to what their old habits are. So I tell them, if we're doing something crazy, I said, we're not going to do this in a game. I'm trying to get you out of your old habit.
Same thing.
Right, so we go to the other extreme, and once they stop doing the bad habit, then we can get back to somewhere in the middle.
Exactly. I always tell them, and I'm glad you said it, because that's what I tell them. I don't want you doing this in a game.
Right.
In the game, I don't want anything in your head.
Right.
So what I want you to do is think about the situation, have an approach, hit the baseball. That's it. We'll work on this stuff at practice. But once we correct that and we see their hands are moving, yes, then we go back to other things. So that was great.
Yeah. So again, we don't talk enough about how much the brain plays a part in hitting. Because that's all that stuff we were just talking about is brain function.
Yeah.
We got to retrain our brains sometimes to to get our bodies to do what we wanted to do. So
Yeah, because let's face it, what really happens in anything that we do, whether it's pitching, fielding, hitting, doesn't matter. The way this works is whatever our eyes see, our brain processes, and our brain tells our body how to move.
Yep.
You don't think when you're throwing the baseball, well, wait a minute, let me bring my arm here, up here. You're not thinking that. You're like, I'm throwing it to him. Boom, and your brain does the rest of the work.
yeah, that information, it goes to your subconscious. Your subconscious does all that stuff. It's like, if you put your hand on a hot stove, you don't sit there and say, hey, the stove is hot, I think I better move my hand. It's just a reaction. So, but that's your subconscious brain doing that. So that's we try to get, with hitting, we're just playing, period. We want everything to be in our subconscious, so we just react the way we're supposed to react. But you have to train that. It just doesn't happen automatically with most of us.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, all of the stuff about hitting is great stuff. I hope that everybody out there got something from it. If people wanted to get in touch with you in the Atlanta area, or people wanted to come and train with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Usually I get referrals, but I guess just give my number out. So I'm on Facebook a lot, but I don't do the other social media a whole lot. So it may sit there for a while. But I'll just give out my number. My number is 404-426-5308. And then, so if you're interested, just send me a text. And then, we'll work something out. And we're doing national teams this year, too. So if you got any kids out there looking for a national team to get some development, you're doing from 12 to 18. So we have that available as well.
Well, I got to tell you, everybody, I mean, really, this has been a great conversation with Carl. I'm glad that we were able to hook up here at the convention. And if you're in the Atlanta area and you don't look him up, well, then it's one of the, how do we say that? You get what you deserve, okay? Here's a guy who has a wealth of knowledge, and if I were you, I'd reach out to him if you're in Atlanta. And by the way, I believe Atlanta is the city that listens to this show the most, I believe it's Atlanta.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons we moved there. Atlanta's it's just a hotbed for baseball. The whole state of Georgia is a hotbed for baseball.
Yeah. It's amazing because I would think, being in New York's a big state, people would, no, Atlanta, Georgia is our number one city.
And it's funny because a lot of the kids that I work with in Georgia, if they lived anywhere, they probably would be playing football. And in fact, I remember I had one kid who was at a high school on a football scholarship, right? And he said he was a running back. He said he would intentionally fumble balls so the coach wouldn't play him.
Really?
Right? Because he was there because he had for the football scholarship, so he had to play football.
Right.
But he preferred baseball.
Right.
Right. So he intentionally didn't play well on the football field just so they wouldn't put him out in the game.
That's amazing.
Right? But I had a lot of guys who preferred baseball over football, which just surprised me when I got there. But yeah, Georgia's a hotbed right now.
Well, I got to tell you, Carl, again, thank you so much for coming on. I got to tell you, this is the second year. Last year we recorded from here. Second year we're doing this, and I love these person-to-person, in-person conversations, because typically when we do the show, it's on a Zoom call and you have somebody on the screen. This is the best. I want to thank you so much for coming on, and it was a great conversation.
You talked to Springer, right? I'm sure you had Steve Springer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. So he was a tough out for me when I played against him.
Yeah.
And so everything he talks about now, he did it when he played.
Yeah, I mean, he's become a good friend. What a great guy.
Oh, yeah. He was, like I said, he's one of those guys who shouldn't have been a professional.
Yeah.
Just based on, looking at him. And, he wasn't fast, didn't have a great arm, didn't have a lot of power. But he was just a tough out.
Had this.
Yeah.
Right.
And you couldn't, he was one of those guys I had a hard time figuring out when he came to the plate.
Yeah.
So it was always a battle, which I love, playing against guys like him. Because it made me better.
Yeah, I mean, again, I look at it like this way. I'm not a player anymore. As a coach, I got to keep grinding. I got to keep working. I got to get better. I got to talk to guys like Carl Nichols, Steve Springer, all of these guys, because I only get better. Yeah, it's a grind, just like anything else. So,
yeah, 100%. So,
thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe we do it again next year or sooner.
Anytime you want.
Okay.
What a way to start off the 2024 ABCA Convention. Carl was a great guest. I enjoyed the conversation incredibly, And, one thing I do got to tell you is that he set the bar kind of high for our other guests to follow. But you want to know something? Something tells me that they're going to rise to the occasion. So listen, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It'll let you know when new content is released so you won't miss out on any of the amazing information that our guests have to offer. Also, reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, now known as X, or shoot us out an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. Oh, and before we go, I don't want to forget, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.